trying to have better posture this year. That's important, you know. It's like you gotta shove those shoulders back a little bit. You know what I'm saying? You at home, you sit however you feel most comfortable. But me, try and keep these shoulders back. We're back with E3 2018, day 4, day 1, whatever you want, whichever day you want to call it to. You call it whatever day you need to call it. We're here with our first night of shows, and we're joined by our first batch of guests. How about that? Huh? We got Mike from Sea of Thieves. How you doing?
Very well.
Fantastic. Thanks for being here. Thomas, representing Ori.
Exactly.
Yeah, nice. Welcome. Chris Charla, representing
Hey.
the whole ID at Xbox family.
Yep.
Yeah, and Dan Greenawalt back here with Forza Horizons 5.
Thank you, Walter.
Yeah.
Yes, we're here.
Yes, and Alex Navarro is here as well, of course, joining us.
I love games.
Alex loves games. Yeah. Dan, Forza, just trucking along, carring along even, with a new Horizon here. This seasons thing, a lot of games do seasons, and it rarely seems like that big of a deal, but it really sounds like that this stuff's going to make a big change.
Yeah, you know, seasons change all aspects of the game.
Yeah.
So, you know, leaves fall, it changes the look of the trees and what have you, but it changes the driving conditions, and more importantly, it's a shared experience. So I actually, this is the first time in any open world game that seasons change every single week for the entire community.
Okay.
And
I was going to ask what the frequency was, if it was just like every 6 hours you get a new season or something. Okay, so weekly change.
It's once a week, and then every time a season comes back, so like when you experience winter again in a month, it's actually different. There's new events going on, there's new things to do. So the community experiences sunrise and sunsets and rain showers and rainbows, and then the seasons together, millions of them.
And you're connecting players together kind of live on the fly this time around. Like prior to this, it was a lot of drivatars, and you know, you encounter people like that. Is this time like you will encounter live players out in the world?
Well, it depends on how you want to play.
Okay.
If you want to play solo, you'll have drivatars, and it's a similar experience. You can challenge them on the open road and win prizes. But the way we're hoping people will opt in is that they play it is this giant shared open world where the entire community experiences everything at once, but there can be 72 players on a given instance together.
Cool.
And then at any point you can just hit up on the D-pad and you can partner up with people. Now you have collision, you get extra points, you can drift around. So the goal is to make it seamlessly social, where you're not really thinking about it at all. But when people worry about, oh, a griefer is going to run me off the road, like, they won't. Don't worry about it.
Yeah.
Taking care of that.
That's I feel like that's something that is long overdue. Well, Test Drive Unlimited did this back on the 360 in a way of just, you know, obviously a much lower player count. And it was like, but it was kind of the journey thing of players kind of connecting together seamlessly and disconnecting as they go. And yeah, it's awesome to see an open world driving game kind of getting back to that in a much bigger way. I'm pretty excited about it.
And the immersion gameplay. Just seeing
yeah.
people drifting in circles and whatever,
Yeah.
just that's what we know Horizon's known for.
Totally. Now, Sea of Thieves.
Sea of Thieves.
I really want to love Sea of Thieves.
Oh, thanks.
But I haven't. I haven't had my moment with it.
Yes.
That's been the thing.
Yeah.
I've spent not a you know an immense amount of time, but you know I played a few long sessions around launch, and kind of rarely saw other ships.
Yeah.
And there was just, you know, it seemed like there was a lot of work to get to the cool user kind of shared experience stuff there. There's new content coming, of course.
Yeah.
And some has already come, actually, since launch,
Yeah,
of course.
yeah, the Hunger and Deep has
yeah.
been released.
But then 2 more packs coming.
Yeah.
Like,
And then 3 more after that.
okay, yeah. And so, how, you know, are any of those going to help me, or is it just kind of like, are you catering to the people that are already kind of there and really getting the most out of it already?
No, I think it'll absolutely help you. I think generally what we're hearing from our players is, I mean, obviously some people absolutely love the game.
Of course,
I know
yeah.
we're seeing that, you know, for the numbers that we've shared. Like, there's so many people enjoying the game, but I think like it's important that we grow the game across all the areas. And generally, people are saying that they just want more. You know, they like that core experience. They certainly love the idea of Sea of Thieves. You know, they're having a great experience playing it. But people just want more of it. And I think, you know, what we try to do is kind of innovate here. You know, have a new take on multiplayer. You know, build this rich pirate canvas where you've got this set of tools and your experience plays differently each time.
Yeah.
I mean, to have those high highs, you've got to have the low lows. And sometimes those pieces and the stars don't quite align, and you have that awesome play experience. and then someone can play for 10 minutes and have an experience like no other.
And that's exactly what happened. It's like there was a friend of mine going, no, I love this game, and here's why. And they're like running down this encounter. I'm like, I want to do that. Yeah. And I'm like, well, I'm going to get back in, and it just didn't happen. It didn't happen. I'm like, what? Yeah.
And people come to us like they want more content in Sea of Thieves.
Sure.
And the type of content we're going to build, we are building, reflective of what we've announced so far, is it's going to touch on a number of areas. Ways to play, more reasons to go out into the world and have those awesome adventures, new quest types. You'll be seeing things like that, new goals to go and aspire and earn. And then what we call the journey, which is kind of the stuff you were talking about, which is the things that happen along the way that make your session play differently. I mean, there's a reason why on the team we always kind of reference in early interviews like the idea of, it's like the Goonies. It's a bunch of friends together on this adventure, they're after pirate treasure. Who knows what's going to happen along the way. It's going to play out differently, but they're going to walk away with memories that last a lifetime. And we always kind of loved that idea. So the game's going to get richer across all of those areas. But, a lot of people are loving Sea of Thieves. And I think it's around, building more content for them, enriching the game that we have, but also for people that love the idea of Sea of Thieves and they haven't played yet, it's about bringing them on board. So we feel really happy with their approach for the rest of the year, about growing the game in all those areas. So see you back on the high seas.
All right, I'll give it a go. I want to throw up on people, but if there's not like a big, large experience around that, I can only do that so many times before I'm like, all right, I'm dragging the crew down by just getting drunk and just throwing up on people over and over again. I'll go. Ori, we actually Jason saw Ori earlier in the day and came on and talked a little bit about it. This sounds like a significantly larger thing.
Yeah, it is. Basically, it's about us trying to really perfect the formula, right? Like after Blind Forest, I kind of became obsessive with reading all the message boards. I listened to you guys. I know exactly hey, Brad was a big fan of Blind Forest. You weren't.
It just didn't.
Yeah. But this time we're really trying to get everybody right. I really have to think of for example, why did you like Symphony of the Night, right? But then Ori didn't do something for you, right? So I'm looking into that, and to us, it's really about just trying to perfect, taking the good stuff that we had and trying to perfect that. So a design philosophy that I told the team was, I really want Will of the Wisps to become the Blind Forest, but Super Mario Bros. 3 was the Super Mario Bros. 1. So take that same core, but really try to perfect the gameplay and so on, and give people much more choice. And the combat system was one thing that people brought up in the first game that wasn't as deep as they wanted it to be, and now we go bananas with it and so on.
Yeah, it sounds like like multiple weapons to play around with.
Yeah, there's tons of different weapons, and every weapon has its own animations, right? The timing is completely different. The enemies are completely rebuilt so that you really have to use combat. We wanted to bring combat just onto the same level that platforming was in the first one.
Sure. Yeah, and the weapon. When you say Symphony of the Night, and then there are a lot of different weapons. Okay, yes, with a lot of different animations.
Symphony of the Night, for example, Alucard only had this one animation, right, for every attack.
Right.
So we're really trying to still improve upon what the genre has done until this point, right? We really try to see, okay, how can we do even better?
Cool. Charla, you're out there signing games, making deals, doing all this stuff, just skateboarding around the world, looking for people developing games. How is it? What's the scene like out there these days? It seems like
it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you look at the stuff that we showed at the briefing. I think we showed 27 games from ID at Xbox partners, whether it was the games we showed in the montage, like Generation Zero and Sable, and all those games to Session and Tunic. Yeah. It was Black Desert. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And so there's just never been a better time to be making games or to be playing games right now. And for the ID team, which I'm part of, we get to, we have the most fun jobs anyplace.
Has it become more, well, I don't know, I was gonna say more competitive. The thing I heard is definitely, before the Switch launched, you started hearing rumors about hey, Nintendo really cares about indie games.
Yeah, they do. It's awesome.
And they've been out there killing it too.
Yeah. It's great.
Sony is, they're kind of up and down with stuff depending on what they need for a press conference or whatever. But yeah, how is it out there? Are you kind of fighting tooth and nail for games, going, no, we want this one first, or is it really just kind of hey, we just want to make sure we get the game?
Yeah, it's more the latter. I know a lot of independent developers are having great success on Switch, and that's fantastic. Get a Switch, get Rocket League. you know, play with your friends on Xbox. Like, that's wonderful. I mean, for us, we don't worry about, you know, what else is happening in the world. We want developers to be successful wherever they want to be. Like, our job focus is just make it as easy as possible for them to get on Xbox, make sure they have everything they need on Xbox, and then, you know, as a byproduct of that, make sure players have awesome games. And then, you know, if people want to, you know, be with us on stage or, you know, do something with us, like, that's awesome. So, you know, like, we don't stress out about that stuff. We just try and do as good a job as we can. And, like, we've been lucky in that, like, some super, super cool games are coming to the Xbox.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And when you talk about, like, giving developers what they need, it feels like in the early days that was kind of wrapped up in the, hey, you know, we're going to make sure that every box is a dev kit, or rather, like, you know, hey, we're, you know, and before that, it was like, we're going to make sure you can get a dev kit. Is that still largely the case? Like, how much,
absolutely.
how much is the support, like beyond that? Do a lot of developers need more than that, or are you just kind of like, here are the tools are good?
Well, so yeah, we still do the exact same thing. Like, every Xbox can be a dev kit if somebody wants to put a game in the creators program. If you're part of ID, we send you 2 kits. It used to be we would send you 2 S's. Now we send you a Xbox One X kit and an S kit, so, you know, developers can make sure they take advantage of Xbox One X. And then we sort of step back because, like, we don't help make the games. And, you know, if somebody has a problem, if somebody has a technical question, we bring in all the resources. And then as you get closer to certification, we help the developers get through cert, you know, help do promotional amplification, that kind of thing. But by and large, the thing that's fascinating to me, like, over the past 5 years, is just how good tools have gotten, whether it's Unreal or Unity or Game Maker. And so for a lot of developers, the gating factor is no longer like, how do I get this sprite to display on the screen? It's just like, how good was my idea? And, like, you know, how much work am I willing to put into, like, endlessly iterating on gameplay, which is what you know, really need to do to make a game great. And to me, we're finally, you know, I used to, back in the, when I was a journalist, like a million years ago, you know, we used to talk about this vision that eventually technology to get to the point where it's like, it's just about the art. And it's not, the tech just doesn't get in the way. And we're getting closer and closer to that, like, every year. And so for us, like, obviously we support devs if they have tech problems, but, like, mostly what we do is, like, look at games and say, like, whew, that's rad.
Nice. See, I'm a person who has bad ideas and not a lot of time. So when the tools get that good, then maybe I'll get into it. I keep almost downloading Game Maker. I'm like,
you should do it.
Like, I should just get this. Do it.
I've done it. I'm, like, goofing around with Game Maker. I will tell you, unfortunately, Game Maker is really easy to use. It does not make bad ideas good.
Great.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to make a good game.
Yeah.
That would be just take too much time.
Is there room on the Xbox platform for more bad ideas?
It's like, how can my bad idea get out there? Do I just have to go to Steam?
I'm gonna submit my game at some point, you know, under an alias that makes it through. So we'll see.
Okay. Because I got some bad ones too.
Yeah.
Great. All right. Let's get in the bad game.
Yeah.
Terrific. Dan, now the Forza series kind of becoming this two-pronged assault, right? Of, you know, you've got Motorsport and then Horizon. Now, I've always associated Turn 10 primarily with Motorsport, you know, because with Playground on Horizon. But how much of a role, how much time do you spend with Horizon? Are you already, like, thinking about, you're, like, actually off in next Motorsport land, and Horizon is like, hey, those guys got this, but I've got some ideas, or how does that relationship work?
Well, so the great thing about these teams, it's 2 world-class teams, and my role is not to say what they should do. It's to target where we should go in many years. So it's more about creating inspiration and vision for both teams. So I'm roughly equally involved in both teams. We have other things going on as well, including the Forza RC esports.
Oh, right.
We do more things in community and the website. There's a lot of stuff going on across the Forza world. So my goal is to talk to the team about what would it mean to shape the future of automotive entertainment. And that creates a really nice, comfy seat for both, you know, Playground and Horizon, as well as Turn 10 and Motorsport. Motorsport's about precision and comprehensive driving and mastery, and it's this enormous game. And Horizon is all about freedom and fun and the open world. Both of them, though, bring car lovers into games, and they take people that love games and get them interested in cars. They bring different generations together. They bring different people with accessibility or different demographics, people across the world. They bring them together around cars and games, and that to me is the vision incarnate. Yeah. So I don't really try and meddle with, hey, there's an idea for this or an idea for that. It's really, hey, this is awesome, this is great. How are we going to create an even larger community.
Right.
You know, last year, 22 million players played Forza. And that was 30% more than the year before, and 2018 is going to be our biggest year yet. So when I say shaping the future of automotive entertainment, what I mean is we are entertaining 22 million players and bringing them into this larger car culture. That is nothing I imagined 15 years ago when I started on this journey.
Do you think there's room, you know, there's been a lot of talk, you know, obviously EA released their Burnout Paradise remaster, and, you know, there are definitely companies out there that are skewing even further into the kind of arcade territory at the expense of realism than even Horizon does. You know, they're kind of just going all the way out there. Do the teams ever get any thoughts about, like, hey, what if we got rid of all these licensed cars and just went off and smashed them all up?
You know,
the licensees aren't going to necessarily like it when we bang up their stuff.
That's very true. So licensing is, you know, honestly a large part of what we have to do. I mean, it's one of those.
Sure. Yeah.
It's almost like a technology. We simply have to be good at it. But, you know, we're all about car culture.
Yeah.
So yes, it's a game made for gamers. You think about Horizon with collectibles, and there's multiple ways to advance your career in the game, whether it's photography or drifting or racing, all these different ways. It's a gamer's game, but at its heart, it's for people who love cars.
Yeah, that authenticity is like kind of the key part of it all.
For sure. And so I still think there's room for things that are not always precise and they're not, you know, quite as technically accurate, but that connection that a kid builds with a brand, you know, with their friends and with their family, with their father and their mother, you know, building that connection with cars, that's what we're all about.
What do you think happens, you know, 5 years, 10 years down the line, something like that? You know, there's been a lot of talk about self-driving cars, you know, the future of that realm of tech. And do you ever, you know, if we get to a point, there's a lot of people talk a lot about how, oh, you know, like millennials or, you know, the younger generations don't want to own a car. And maybe can't, depending on where they live and that sort of stuff. Do you think we get to a point with the technology and just kind of those types of societal changes that, like, maybe some of that connection with the car starts to break down?
It's possible. I think we're rebuilding it. So to me, it's not about looking at the way car culture was built 20 years ago and trying to replicate that in a new generation.
Yeah.
I need to embrace what this generation's excited about. So that is why we look at esports. And even esports, we're not trying to replicate what you see in real world motorsport like the Indy 500 or an F1 race. We want to create something new that can only be done in the digital space to create those new bonds. You know, the autonomous car, I think that's great. It's going to give people more hours in the day.
Yeah.
Right now when you're driving, you can't be gaming.
Yeah.
So what do you think you're going to be doing in that autonomous car?
Right.
Playing games.
Yeah. That's
maybe even playing a racing game in a car that you're not driving. So that's when I look 5 years out in the future, I think that's the sort of thing that'll happen. And I do take a little bit of issue, and part of it's because of my role, with the idea that this generation's not necessarily interested in cars. We've been through a recession. Also, a lot of the polls are done in big cities. Big cities are collecting more people in. Infrastructure's getting better. So I think there are multiple trends at work here, but there's still a tremendous passion for cars among a younger generation. And that idea that a car is freedom, that's not dead.
Sure.
Like, that is just true. It is true around the world. Think about the automotive industry in China. It surpassed the United States like 3 or 4 years ago. The car culture is getting bigger than it's ever been. It's just not necessarily the same in the United States. And that's where we tend to do the studies.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's still some part of me that is just like, I just want to get a Civic and just start doing stuff to it. Like I want to get back to that. It's been a while.
Till the check engine light comes on.
Exactly.
And it's like a laser beam in your eyeball every morning. You go, what did I do? It was a reliable car once.
Yeah. It's either that or I go all the way back. You know, like my first car was a '68 Chevy Nova. And I totaled that thing 2 months after I got my license because it had positive traction, and I was just power braking every chance I got, and just smashed it up because I'm an idiot. And
same thing, different car.
Yeah, no, it's, you know, we tried to rebuild it. It was never the same. And yeah, and I still have those memories. And those it's reasons like those why I think motorsport still holds appeal to me. Even as Horizon gets further and further that direction, I'm just like, actually, I just want to have a good time and, you know, do all that power braking without actually destroying this guy's 2-week-old Dodge Cummins diesel that I slammed into. It was parked.
Where did that car come from?
Yeah, exactly. Where'd that car come from? And then he got home and he had just bought it. He cried when he saw what I had done to his truck. Insurance bought him a new one, but anyway.
You were there.
Yeah, no, yeah, it was a bad time. It was a bad time. I lied to the cops. Speaking of breaking the law, piracy, very serious issue.
Yeah.
You know, it's been interesting seeing prior to release Sea of Thieves. Really, it seemed a little nebulous, and it seemed very focused on the social aspect of all this stuff, which is just it's such a fascinating space, and there aren't really a ton of games doing that first. You know, it's like, hey, we're kind of building the game and then dropping some social stuff in after the fact. Like, at what point in development did it seem like that was going to be the way to go? It was like, hey, let's make sure that we're building this experience to be bringing people together, and then we'll layer the stuff in.
I'd say probably the first 5 minutes.
Wow.
The core vision of the game was always, and this was before it was pirates, before we even dreamed of making a pirate game. It was us looking at where could gaming go. These kinds of experiences that we were starting to see emerge. We were looking at the PC space, almost PC being the barometer for where things could go. Looking at things like Rust and DayZ, and the idea of shared world experiences, giving players a set of tools, giving them this shared world, and then these magical things happening when players come together in this shared world, and seeing this emergent storytelling. So the core vision for the game was players creating stories together. It was the idea of, what if we championed soft skills rather than hard skills? Hard skills being mechanical mastery, mastery over mechanics. Skills, hard stat points. Soft skills being the things that we use every day, things that we're using now. We're just talking to each other, we're using our own intuition and our strategy to solve problems. And that's what Sea of Thieves wanted to champion. And then when we thought about, well, it'd be great if we could use those soft skills to have players working together, like taking some of the rough edges of some of those, you know, dog-eat-dog worlds that, you know, DayZ and Rust are so popular for.
Right.
How can we make you truly feel like you're working together? And then we're thinking, well, how do we wrap this up? How do we take the idea of coming to this experience with pre-made knowledge? What's the right way we can wrap this experience up where everyone's going to know what you do in the world? And then we couldn't think of a more perfect expression of co-op than a bunch of friends on a ship working together, using all those interaction points. You know, the ship being this piece of wood. It's not going to sail itself. It's not going to have adventures on itself. It needs those people, those players, to work together on that ship, point towards the horizon with, you know, a core reason. Everyone knows that pirates follow X to where treasure's buried.
Of course.
Everyone knows that pirates were sick on each other, but no. But the idea of, you know, people coming with.
We had a guy in here yesterday that didn't know the pirates stole stuff. So.
Sea of Friends. Sea of Friends spin-off. No.
He's a co-worker. Let's call him.
But I think it's kind of interesting, like Dan talking about the car representing freedom, but, you know, rolling it back to the idea of being on the waves, and that representing freedom, and then us trying to innovate in this space where we wanted to give you a lot of mechanical freedom. And I think Pirates just was that perfect wrapper. And everyone knows what pirates do, apart from your friend.
Right.
Everyone knows that pirates
co-worker.
Everyone knows that pirates sail around, and it's a sense of our crew against the world.
Right.
And we're going to head towards the horizon. Who knows what's going to happen along the way? And then that whole idea of emergent storytelling, it just felt like this perfect seed of an idea. But you talked about the idea of social, and this is where it gets really interesting, where we kind of realised fairly early on that it goes beyond game design. It becomes more about human psychology.
Right.
How are people going to interact in this world when they come across each other? And that was around realising that we needed to innovate not only in the gameplay space, it was how we released the game and worked with the community. You know, we hired a video team about us being more open with the community. We had our own technical alpha program about let's get this into players' hands early. And there's a reason why it felt like that concept was so nebulous. It was because, you know, we could talk about it till we were blue in the face. You had to play it to understand what was special. You had to have those moments that no other game can give you to really understand of why Sea of Thieves was so special.
Yeah, I think it was interesting because, you know, like seeing it at E3 last year and through some of the alphas and some of the stuff that came out, it was that feeling of like, okay, like this is really cool, But you know, because you know, we play a lot of video games. Like at some point, there's still that feeling in the back of your head of just like, yeah, but what do you do? And that was the weird feeling at launch. Was that feeling of like, okay, I'm still not 100% sure what to. Okay, we're still having good times out here on the boat, and I definitely threw up on people, and then we made the sails aim in the right direction, and like this looks amazing, and there's like, but what do we do now?
I mean, it's
you know, we're used to games telling us, you know, it's only been recently over the last handful of years that stuff like, you know, like Dark Souls brought back the simple idea of just like, hey, maybe we're not going to give you a good tutorial. You know,
well, you're going to work for it,
right? Yeah,
it's a great game.
And so I think, you know, in a lot of ways, I think a lot of players, myself included, for sure, you know, we've expected to be like spoon-fed a little bit more of like, hey, here's the loop, and now go do it. And it was interesting to like get a hold of Sea of Thieves and be like, okay, none of this is here. And I'm not sure what I'm just going to sail towards this big skull in the sky, and we're going to see how, oh, it goes bad. Okay, it goes bad over there. Okay, now we know. It goes bad. Yeah.
That was all about kind of giving you a core reason to just head out in the world. Like, here's an Xbox spot map, here's a merchant contract, here's a bounty mission. That we designed that to be deliberately simple. It's like, here's a basic premise to go out and have these adventures. But the true adventure is all the stuff that happens along the way. And I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, in the sense of the core of the game is that social heart. It's having these awesome adventures. Decisions around the progression system where we don't have power progression. We don't have these vertical progression systems that mean that, you know, you've got to play and keep up with your friends. This is a game you chill out, have some beers, have a laugh, have these awesome adventures with your friends, and never have that feeling of, I've got to catch up with you. I've got to put in the same amount of hours of you. And you know, the way we're releasing these content updates, you know, want to bring players to Sea of Thieves that like the idea, they haven't checked it out yet. And I think some of the decisions we've made, I mean, hopefully they'll really pay off for us, where, you know, everyone can play with each other and they're all in that shared space, and people coming in with different motivations. The players that want to have that pirate fantasy moment of firing broadsides and have that PvP experience. Players who want to have adventures on islands, all being in that same melting pot of their shared world. Means that you're going to have more emergent scenarios. But think of what we've launched. I mean, that foundation, that's new and different. We're just going to keep pumping more content in, and that's what we've set up the team to do, is and expand the game across all of those areas.
And at some point, maybe there's just an island where Viva Pinata takes place. What if there was just an island? What if we just hit a little island in there? I could get. How about a mission where I got to go out and get fudge hogs? just a little something.
Someone needs to steal the fudge hogs from you, though. We make them vulnerable to
if someone stole my fudge hog, I don't know if I can handle it. That's a big, oh man.
That's the loot, man. You got to get your fudge hog back.
I got to get this. I will kill to get this fudge hog back. With Ori, I mean, you know, like obviously, like, you know, there's been so much happening around with, you know, online gaming and connecting people and doing that sort of stuff. But I think, you know, obviously there's still tons of room for just like really good, tight, single player, kind of more traditional experiences. Do you ever find like that seems like that's pretty much a no-brainer, but you know, as games kind of get more heady and flighty and stuff like that, do you ever feel like standing out in the pack is sometimes a little difficult? Or I mean, does Ori just kind of speak for itself on the virtue of just like, hey, look at this thing, it's awesome?
I mean, to me, it boils down to, I want to craft an experience with the team that we have that it's just as perfect as it can be, right? And to me, the sign of a true classic is, you know, can I 10 years in the future, right? Can I still play that game and have as much fun as I have right now, right? Like, I still play a lot of games like Super Metroid today, right? Just simply because they're still holding up, they're still fun, and that's really just what we're trying to craft. We're just trying to craft this masterpiece where people just, you know, really feel like, oh my God, the people that worked on this put the love into this, right? And yeah, I mean, that's what we're trying to do, really to craft this perfectly, super nicely done package.
This may be something that I'm not even sure if any of you would want to take this next question, but you know, there was talk at the press conference, and obviously, you know, some talk in the run-up to the show and some interviews and stuff about streaming technology. You know, about kind of streaming games into our homes and maybe getting away from having as much hardware in the home and playing things over video streams. The technology's been around for a while. It works well enough, but it's not the same. It's not quite the same. You know, these games are about precision. You know, precision moments. You know, driving a car, precision in something like Ori, and you know, like a lot of the games that you're seeing are, you know, like definitely built on this idea of just like, hey, when you hit the controls, it's going to happen. Do you think that this tech will get to the point where those games can still thrive? It's hard for me, having tried some of the services that are out today, and obviously, you know, if we're talking about the 10-year plan of the Xbox brand or whatever, you know, the technology would improve, but it's still hard for me to think about things like fighting games, rhythm games, you know, the games that have these very like frame-specific things, and you know, of course, like driving games, competitive games, and stuff like that, working in that type of environment. When you think about that stuff, and obviously, again, we're talking relatively, well, maybe not all that far-flung. I was going to say far-flung future, but we are still talking about the future here. Does that worry you when it comes to the types of games that you're making today in terms of like, hey, we might have to cut down on some of that precision in order to make it work over a video stream?
I find it exciting.
Yeah.
I count on the technology to advance. I think that's just the requirement. I mean, I can make an analogy even with cars. You know, that Toyota Camry is 200 and something horsepower. I mean, that was a muscle car back 60 years ago. Yeah. Things just advance. Supercars today, the McLaren Senna we unveiled today, it's an 800 horsepower car. You should not be able to control that. It should just kill you. Right. That's just that's what it should do. But because of technology, it doesn't. When I think about the genres that'll come online, you know, infrastructure's catching up, 5G. It really is a combination of infrastructure, interface, so controllers and what have you, so that we can reduce latency. But when you think about some games that are more story-based, they can come over first.
Yeah.
But meanwhile, being able to have a great story on your phone that's beautifully rendered, how awesome is that going to be? Yeah. And that's where I think we'll start seeing the appetite starting. And then you think about all the genre blending that's happening today, all the time. I mean, there's just almost no pure genre games around anymore. Everything's blending together new ideas. People are going to be taking those ideas of a great story, working within the constraints of today's technology for latency and the interface, and creating new things. And so I don't see it as a big switch overnight. Yeah. It's just going to be a gradual change as the technology catches up. And as a creator, I think it's super exciting.
Yeah, and it's not a zero-sum game, right? Like, I mean, I think Phil said this at the briefing. It's about playing where you want to play. And if you want to be in front of your television, holding a controller attached to an amazing piece of technology that's displaying on your TV, like, absolutely.
I mean, ultimately we'll get there because people love the Switch now, right? Like the idea of just, hey, I pick up this thing and it's portable, it's great, right? But I think standards are also really, you know, a problem. Like I'm a huge fan of kind of like in-home streaming right now because that seems to work really well already.
Yeah, yeah.
But then you have things like, oh my God, the Apple MFI standard doesn't support sticks, right? Like clickable sticks, and it's like, this is so stupid. You know, that has to still change.
It's like, oh, weird, Apple didn't do a good thing with gaming.
They didn't
Weird
know how a controller works. Oh my God.
Yeah, that's been the thing that I think since there was a Variety interview with some quotes from Phil in it, and it was this reminder of just like, oh right, this thing is still coming. You know, you hadn't heard a lot about it in a little bit, and it's like I was left a little shook in terms of just like, but I like really precise games sometimes, and you know, hey, how's that work? But yeah, I guess, you know, there's no reason why they can't be both.
Yeah, the future's about you having the choice, right?
Yeah.
If you want precision, absolutely. If you want to be playing an amazing story-based game on your phone, it's like using the power of a bajillion computers to make it look beautiful. Sweet.
You know, I think, and I know I always bring it back to cars. Sorry,
but
hey,
I you know,
man.
It is. I daily
live
drive
your truth.
Yeah, I daily drive a manual to work every day. You know, same thing's been said about manuals going to go here. I think it's really about giving choice. Exactly what Chris is saying. That our goal is to have the genres broaden out, to have the player base broaden out, to have games for every single person and every single place they go. So I don't think anything is replacing anything else. Yeah. It's just going to get richer.
Sure. And I guess I think about it also in terms of like, you know, a lot of people get hung up on install base and all this other stuff. The minute it's just like, hey, you already have 9 devices that can connect to this service and play these games, that just seems like it will end up being a great thing for all types of people creating games, you know, out there. I mean, obviously, you know, you're spending a ton of time talking to developers, you get the sense that this is something that they're thinking about?
I think they're excited when we talk about it.
Yeah.
But I think like I said before, like where we see the world's getting to, and I think where we want the world to be, is a place where what they're thinking about is like cool games and cool experiences that they want to provide. And if it's a precise pixel platform game, like that's gonna want to be on a controller on a TV locally. If it's more broad story-based game, there's no reason that shouldn't be everywhere.
Sure. Yeah. Cool. All right. You've managed to calm me down on that one. It's been because I guess I think about it in terms of like, well, it was the quote from Eve from Ubisoft saying like, we see maybe one more generation of consoles and then everything's streaming. It's like, wait a minute. Like, okay,
Yes, we heard that.
I just got a bandwidth cap like last year and it sucks. Like internet in America is not great now. Internet in Australia is even worse. Like, yeah.
I've heard we're one console generation away from the end since like PS1.
Yeah, fair enough. Yeah, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. Well, guys, thank you so much for coming through. It has been great talking to you. We are going to let you go off into the night and actually enjoy the fruits of Los Angeles, not keep you cooped up in here all night. But thanks so much for coming by.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And we're going to be back in a little bit with another set of guests. So everyone, stay tuned.